Hello from the Dukascopy TV studio. For the technical analysis, I'm joined by Bruno Estier. Mr. Estier, welcome to the studio.
Good morning, Daniel.
So you were bullish in the recent correction. So what is the situation now for equities?
Well, before we switch to equities, just have a look at the US dollar index. I think it is important to notice that we had a rise, parabolic rise, all the way up to 100, and now we are in a trading range between 100 and 97.
So actually, what impact does this transition have?
I think it has a first impact on oil as well. Oil was making a first bottom in January. Now oil has been moving down a little bit while the dollar was improving. Now the dollar is topped. It's confirmed as well a second bottom for oil, and that allows probably to have a relatively stable range between 42 and 55.
If we view the US energy sector, what impact does this development have?
It's kind of obvious, but the energy sector was impacted negatively before. We see that on the long-term descending trend line of the relative strengths. It has been now 3 bottoms, one in December, one in January, the last one in March at higher levels, and it's getting near to the long-term descending trend line. So the fact that we are going to break this trend line is going to help the S&P.
Would these energy tendencies have a positive impact on the equities for new heights, maybe?
I think we can see that. Let's look first at the S&P 500. We are almost back at the new high, so it will help with a rising momentum. But we have even more. If we look at the small and mid caps, the small caps are making new highs, the mid cap are making new highs, and this is generally good news for the market, bullish news for the market. Especially we see that with the special line called the advanced decline line here in red, and this advanced decline line is making a new high. That means that there is a large breadth on the market, and this is also very important because when we make a new high with this line, that means the top of the market is in front of you later between 4 to 6 months.
So what would be new targets for the S&P 500?
Here, I think we can say that we keep the same targets as before. We had some targets in the vicinity of 2140, 2150, and then for longer term, 2200 and 2260. So we are still moving within our rising wedge with good upside momentum.
Thank you, Mr. Estier. You also highlight always the Japanese markets. What's the situation there? Can we sort of keep the targets as they were?
We are kind of lucky. This is a rising market. It is an outperforming market, as we see here on the rising relative strengths. So we'll keep our target above 20,000, 20,200.
And as regards to the European market, how is it impacted by the dollar, by the pause of the dollar rise?
Of course, a declining currency, the declining euro help a lot the European market, and we see that huge rise that we had. A little pause in the US dollar rise is going to be translated probably by a very minor pause on the US Euro Stocks Index 50.
What are the targets for the Euro stocks?
Here, if we look longer term, we still keep the same target at 38.30, and we can say that as long as we stay above 3600, the support, all things are fine.
And what is the impact of the dollar range in terms of the US long yield?
Well, it's clear that sometimes people say it's the egg or the chicken. That means what is moving what here. It happened at the same time as the dollar was kind of pulling back a little bit. It gave the impression that the Fed will not raise rates very soon, and therefore long-term interest rate had the tendency to pull back a little bit. But what I want to stress is the difference between this minor intermarket relationship with the general pattern of the US rates. We had from mid-February to the end of February a rise, an important rise from 165 to 225. And what we've got now, these minor pullbacks are just so-called corrective of the previous rise. That means that we should expect later on a higher rise above 225, 250. So short term, a very minor pullback, but longer term, the trends up remains.
Bruno Estier, thank you very much for being here and sharing your expertise.
You're welcome.
And thank you for your interest. You also find newest updates on the website of Dukascopy TV. Have a good day and see you next time.